Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Friday now, the 24th day of May 2024. Lots of 24s in there. Welcome to the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. On today's update, tropics are generally quiet, which is a good thing since we know what is probably coming. But we'll take a look at a few things, including sort of moved it to the front of the line, a very important post from our friend at Tomer Berg that I want to kind of use to launch things as we get into this Memorial Day weekend. It's important, I'll show you. So the tropics are pretty quiet, certainly, but the severe weather situation, I mean, my goodness, the tornadoes, seriously, since the end of April, so almost a month now, have just been relentless out here in the plains, and we have a lot of severe weather ahead of us to come over this busy weekend for people traveling and enjoying some hopeful time off, right? Right. All right, so let's get to it. First of all, this tweet here, this post from Tomer, and I thought this was really eye-catching, so I figured I would share it with you all. And he says, with comments on the hurricane season outlooks, you know, these a bunch of them, but especially the NOAA one and Colorado State, but the general thought here that the comments, people say stuff like, they say every year will be extremely active, they always exaggerate hurricane forecasts, and I've heard people say that. He's right. And he says neither of those are true. The source, the graphic below comparing forecasts to verification. And if we dig deeper and we look at this, not only does NOAA's forecast for this year's Atlantic hurricane season call for well above average activity, as there is a higher than average confidence of an active season, their outlook is higher than almost all of the past years, their outlooks issued except for May of 2020. And so you can look in here and see how things verified, and it seems that they do a pretty good job. They don't always call for an extremely active season. It's sort of the perception of it, and I think social media helps to perpetuate that, and that's all we see all the time, so that sort of truth, if you will, in air quotes, becomes reality when in fact it is not a truth. And he goes on to say this year's outlook does call for more named storms, but a slightly lower upper bound for hurricanes than 2010's outlook. So that's really, really important to note. And as we go back to the thread and the overall framework of his post, it's also very true that it only takes one. And I know people are probably tired of hearing that over the years. It only takes one, but it does. And so just to read what he says here, despite the overall basin-wide tropical cyclone activity and the favorability for this year, all it takes is one for devastating land impacts. And here Quentin Lawton says it's important that folks in hurricane-prone regions have a readiness plan and supplies stocked for this season, because you think about Andrew in 1992 being in a below-average season, and then, of course, in 2015, and this is important here, we had overall very low activity due to the strong El Nino, but Joaquin led to major flooding in parts of the southeast United States, especially South Carolina. Anyway, just wanted to kind of frame this up because we've had a lot of info from yours truly and all across social media about how busy the hurricane season is going to be. And when people are like, well, they always say that. No, they don't. And we can prove it with data, from what was actually said. All right, so there's that. So what do we have out there now? Well, we got this one little area that has moved on. 10% chance of further development. It's probably not going to do much at all. Upper level winds not very favorable in the overall environment, just not too conducive. Nothing brewing in the East Pac, so that certainly is great. Looking at our system here on satellite this morning, there it is, and you can see that comma shape to it. Energy is spread out, and you know what I'm looking for. We're looking to see if the energy is bundling. It is not, and therefore we're not going to have to worry about it too much. This is what it looks like on the vorticity product, and yeah, everything is just kind of spread out here over a large area, so that is not going to cut it. That's a lot of energy spread out over a large area. That is for darn sure, and this is going to help to trigger severe weather today in this area, and then tomorrow perhaps in this area, and we'll get to that later on. All right, so if you're heading out to the beaches, thought I would show you this. Nice and warm overall in the Gulf of Mexico. These are actual sea surface temperatures, not anomalies. So if we zoom in a little bit, anywhere along the Gulf Coast of Florida over here, pretty darn warm, 27, 28 Celsius, and even ridiculously warm, close to 30 Celsius down in and around the Keys. And most of the shelf water up here warming up. Shelf water is shallow water close to the land, continental shelf water. Texas, all the way through Louisiana, generally 80, 81, maybe 82 degrees in some of the shallower areas. The panhandle of Florida, though, just barely around 80 here, 78, 79, something like that. That's not bad, but if you're looking for really warm water, it's not quite there yet. It's coming, though, believe me. The Gulf is really warming up. And by the way, this is just ridiculous. Look down here in the Bay of Campeche, 30 and then 31 Celsius already over here, and the same is true here to the south of Cuba. Yikes. All right, how about off the Atlantic seaboard? As I said the other day, pretty much anywhere north of Hatteras. Nope, not warm enough, not for me. That is for sure. South and west of Cape Hatteras and along these nice beach areas here, including the east coast of Florida, you know, mid to upper 70s, not bad. As long as the sun is shining, I guess we can tolerate it, right? And of course the anomalies, just keeping a check on that. A little bit of a cool off over here in the extreme eastern Atlantic due to a Saharan air outbreak, and that'll happen, but the overall pattern is still very, very warm in the Atlantic basin, and there's our La Nina trying to come in. Obviously no big changes with any of this stuff. The steady state and the gradual change towards the La Nina certainly underway, and we know the stage is set here for a busy hurricane season. Yeah, I want to show you this. Remember yesterday when I was talking about the GFS and what it was showing with regards to that system, and I said, hey, I need to save that image. If you didn't see yesterday's video, go check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. So the GFS was forecasting this to be what the vorticity signature looked like valid today. Valid at 6 a.m. this morning, so 2 a.m. or so Eastern time. This is what it was supposed to look like, I guess is a way to put it. In fact, when the analysis of the 6Z came out, that is the reality. So the GFS overcooked it a little bit. It's not horrible, but it definitely was not as concentrated. It tried to bundle that energy up there in the northeast part of the overall energy packet, or whatever you want to call it, the envelope. And this was the reality. This is the initial conditions today. So this is like a snapshot of what the GFS was going with when it was initialized. So that's what was forecast. That was the reality. It kind of missed it a little bit. Not a big deal, but just kind of showing you that, yeah, sometimes the models do overdo things. Sometimes they underdo it. Look at what happened with Otis last year as a prime example. What else? So I need to, we'll scooch this tab all the way to the end. They're kind of out of order. And I do want to point your attention to severe weather. Look, a lot of people are going to be traveling, not just to the beach, but you've got lakes and rivers in this Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial start of summer. So we do have some problems out there. A good infographic here from the folks at the Storm Prediction Center. And the possibility, especially tomorrow, that's what I'm highlighting first, of major severe weather here in Oklahoma and Kansas and surrounding areas as well. Probably going to be a lot of chasers out there. Everybody needs to be very, very careful, mindful of other people, and just slow down, just relax, all right? And if you live out there, you know, like, Mark, what are you telling us for? Man, we know. Just reminding you, heads up, keep that phone nearby so you can get alerts, okay? And then the other area of concern is up here in parts of, what do you call that, like the breadbasket area, the Midwest. I guess it's still the Midwest, but the eastern and northeastern portions of it. We'll just call it by states, right? The most prominent areas for severe weather, the highest potential, and as I say here, the most favorable, would be Illinois and Indiana, parts of eastern Missouri. So again, just pay attention. There's a lot going on every day. Just once in a while, glance over at the Weather Service. On social media, you can follow any of these organizations, and you'll know what's going on. And turn those alerts on. I know they can be annoying sometimes, the EAS stuff, but you want to be notified, all right? So just stay on top of it. That's what we want, because we got to keep you alive. That's the number one goal here. So the broader picture, Today, the enhanced risk down here, seems like every day is an enhanced risk now somewhere. And then up here in the extreme northwest corner of Illinois. So we'll be watching the tornado threat, low but not zero. The wind threat, highest up here, as you'd imagine, straight line winds, downbursts. And then the hail threat, again, down here in parts of Texas and Oklahoma. I might be out and try to get some of that later today by myself. Colleague Greg Nordstrom's flying home today, and I'll be going home later. I got to figure out exactly when, so I might be out here for this. We'll see. Did pretty good yesterday, and that's what I want to show you next. Yesterday we had the threat of severe weather. The enhanced was up in Nebraska, and they had some beautiful supercells up there, structure-wise. And then there was the potential that we could see supercell development along the dry line in parts of West Texas, West Central Texas, near the Abilene area, up through the Panhandle and just east of the Panhandle into western Oklahoma. And that verified. I'm sure you have seen the unbelievable video and pictures and Doppler radar samplings of the tornado that was near Altus. So that verified very well the models, the CAMs, the convectively allowing models were showing that. But they also were showing another area of storms kind of moving along in a line south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, near the Hillsboro, the I-35 split, all that area, north of Austin, sort of near Waco, whatever. And we chose that one. I was like, yeah, because we're not after the tornadoes. We're studying hail. That's this new project, trying to get into the position where we can get large hail. We didn't think that these storms would produce large hail, but any hail, any observations we can make, and just any testing we can do as we move forward through this project, which is just in year one, and it's only a month old. We only started this a month ago. All right? So here's what we got. We were tracking some storms, and the pinks in there indicate high reflectivity values. There's other products, the vertically integrated liquid and the hydrometeor type or whatever, but I like this. If you can get under these pinks and sometimes purples, you're probably going to see hail. So this is what it was looking like, and then this is what it was when we got into it, just north of Hillsboro, and this is 35 over here. I'll kind of highlight it for you. That is the interstate, and then it splits up here to 35E, 35W, and then there is the little town of Hillsboro. So what did it look like? It was really kind of neat, to be honest with you. So let me show you a little bit of video here. So this is Hillsboro, and we'll open this up and scroll through. This is raw video, unedited. Get it to play on this old laptop here. So I have a vehicle-mounted GoPro. Let's turn the volume basically down to nothing. Right on the hood, and it's got a nice little battery system in it that'll run the whole thing for 7 or 8 hours. And we're heading south, trying to get into the hail core. All right, so let's just scroll this around, and you can see the very heavy rainfall. And we're starting to see a little bit of hail. You can see a few dots of it on the road there. I mean, it's like pennies and large peas or something. You know, not large hail, I know, but it was hailing nonetheless. And then we were like, well, let's go a little bit farther to the south and get into Hillsboro proper. And you could really tell that it was starting to come down more just from the look of the atmosphere. And here it is again. You can see some of the hail in the yard over here. This grass area, these dots, that's a little bit of accumulation. Getting a little bit larger now, larger marbles, I guess you'd say, maybe dimes. And so we finally get into Hillsboro, and this was really fascinating to see this hailstorm in Hillsboro. And you can see it bouncing on the road, accumulating in the road just a little bit. And again, I know this is not giant hail. I mean, you can't get all giant hail. It's actually harder than we thought to find giant hail. But nevertheless, we had some pretty significant amounts of hail falling in the Hillsboro area. And just kind of fascinating to see as I zoom forward through here, zip forward. There it is. Clearly see it covering the road just a little bit. Mostly marble size bouncing off that Dodge truck in front of us. So just kind of interesting, you know, and seeing hail in sort of an urban environment, if you will, in a small town here in Texas, as urban as it can get. And it started me thinking that with all the cameras that we've got on the truck, for the big hail events, when we finally get one that's happening in a town, it is going to be amazing to see and show people the true damage that hail does. And that is the point of the project. Expose hail for what it is. It is a very destructive part of severe weather. It's not deadly to people as long as they stay out of it, but it is to cattle and other livestock. So then we went up to Itasca, hopefully that's how you say it, or Itasca, I don't know. And we wanted to get up there for another cell that was coming through that was dropping hail. You can see those rain curtains and hail shafts moving through. We get into the town and pull up under this little awning deal here. There was like a food truck right here. These guys are selling who knows what. I guess they pulled in to either get out of the hail. It looks like they're selling shrimp. But anyway, I got out because I wanted to put another camera on the front of the vehicle so that it would look back at us. And I'll show you that view in just a minute. Here's the hail falling in Itasca, or however you say it. Again, marbles, maybe dimes, not a big deal, but really fascinating to see. And I do want to show you this other view real quick. This is from that camera that I mounted quickly there to look back at us and the hood of the Tacoma. You can see me get in there. Boom, now I'm in there. There's Greg. Hey, Greg. And there's the GoPro over there on the left that's facing forward. And we get out in it. Now, this is really, really neat. See if I can get my telestrator back. Some of these, Greg had a really good word for it. He called it nerd hail. They look like those nerds, that little candy you can get. Some people like those. See, they're just weird shaped, almost like grapple, or rock candy or whatever. They weren't particularly round. Some of them were, but it was just really neat to see. And that was the whole point. You know, I'm fascinated by this, these frozen hydrometeors, as we call it. Kind of interesting to see and study. There's one that's a little bit more round, sliding down. They pick up a little bit in intensity here. We'll fast forward a hair. So lots of nerd hail falling. Wasn't very big. Not going to be too damaging. Just pings and pongs, you know, dings and whatever off of your car, but nothing too damaging. Nevertheless, we did pretty well with it, and I appreciate Greg helping out. And we'll continue over the next few weeks, probably into July, tracking hail. Did want to show you this over on our homepage, HurricaneTrack.com. That's us. We don't do a lot on the homepage anymore because social media, YouTube, the insider site, Patreon, and Discord, we're kind of like expanded. But HurricaneTrack is the brand, and it started, speaking of track, with a tracking map that I began way back in the early days of my career in 1996. Started designing this on a Macintosh computer, an old Mac, using Adobe Illustrator, gradually adding these different points into the vector system so that we got a really good base map for tracking. And it goes all the way out to the Cape Verde Islands or Cabo Verde Islands, whichever you prefer. And I've been producing these ever since 1996 in the hundreds of thousands. Way back then, it was with Lowe's and grocery stores and TV stations and even a few radio stations. I would produce these and print them up by the tens of thousands, and they would be given away for free through different sponsors. Now, in these latter years here, or later years, whatever, I produce them just for me and our patrons, and then we always have a bunch left over because I have to have at least 150 printed to make it even worthwhile, and I sell them. You know, it's just, I mean, why hoard them? I can't give them all away. That wouldn't make sense. So we sell them. They're $20 each plus $3 to ship it. And I ship them flat, folded up twice in a brown envelope. And we're up to about 53 people out of 100 that are available. And I really appreciate that. You have a nice piece of artwork there that I drew in a computer. Like, that is my map. I made that. Put the lines in there, everything. So you truly own a piece of artwork in an old school way to track hurricanes. So you can go to this link here, HurricaneTrack.com/track map if you want to get one. Not too late. And again, a real big thank you to those that bought one. And some of you have even tagged me over on Twitter and said, hey, here's my map. It's fantastic. And that's really awesome. It just is amazing. So thank you. All right. You guys be safe out there if you're traveling this Memorial Day weekend. Again, we got to have you alive so that you can like and share these videos. Seriously. They have an ulterior motive to keep you alive. Ha ha ha, right? But seriously, I take what I do very seriously. The team of us at Hurricane Track does as well. And we all wish you a happy and enjoyable Memorial Day, and certainly remembering what it is for, keeping that in mind as well. So with that, I bid you farewell until probably Monday. And we'll wrap things up, and I'll see you on Monday for Hurricane Track. I'm Mark Sudduth. Have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you again on Monday.